My name is Vaughn Wascovich. I'm from Ohio originally and lived in Chicago for 12 years. And currently I'm down in Texas teaching at Texas A&M. I'm in East Texas, about an hour east of Dallas. And this work is a response to my first going down there and seeing the landscape and crossing the Red River for the first time. I'd never really spent any time in that part of Texas before, and so I knew I wanted to sort of, I needed to rein it in for myself. My work's always about landscape and how landscape informs us. And so I knew I needed to photograph this place. I didn't quite know how I wanted to do it, but I'd been interested in pinhole photography for a long time. And so that's what I chose to do for these projects. Pinhole photography is really interesting to me because unlike a lot of digital work where you take a picture and you look at it and you go, yep, I got it, with pinhole photography, I'm really completing the composition in the darkroom. So these images are made with a wooden box with a hole in it, and I use 8 by 20 inch or 16 by 20 inch paper negatives. And I expose the paper to light and the landscape, and then I go in the darkroom, and when the image is coming up, I'm processing it in such a way that I kind of call it everything I do is wrong, where if Ansel Adams would put things in a tray and rock it back and forth to not get developing marks, I'm really trying to get developing marks. I'm really interested in the process of photography. So I want to learn how the chemicals respond to the paper and the kind of marks they can leave. The way a painter paints, I'm doing the same thing in the darkroom with this chemical dance, sort of. And I get about 1.5 minutes to do that once the image starts to come up. And I can see areas that I want to make darker or make lighter, and I do that in the darkroom. I scan the image and then I print them out. These are all digital prints, but I do very little digital manipulation to my prints at all. All the marks you see are marks that are left from working in the darkroom with these. So the series I have behind me here, there are basically two series. The earlier series, which are shot with the 8 by 20 cameras and they're more panorama-like, are really more about landscape and my response to a particular landscape. The pieces behind me are from the same East Texas landscape, but they're more of a response to sort of the political situation that's been happening and when the elections were taking place, and that sort of cacophony of sound that I was constantly being bombarded with. This is sort of a response to that. I think of it sort of as a wall of sound or a wall of visual sound where there are layers of composition here, but they're all hitting you at the same time. In the same way that in a lot of contemporary jazz, all the musicians play the solos at once. So it's this sort of wall of sound that you need to like sort of discover and weed apart a little bit. And these pieces are all held together by the cross shape, and then I'm using templates when I'm developing it that I lay on top of the image so that I get different developing marks, even though the subject of trees and the landscapes holds it all together in a way. I got involved in photography way back in the 70s. I actually got involved in photography going into high school, and I learned all the traditional wet darkroom techniques. One of my heroes, like many people, was Ansel Adams, and he told you this is the right way to do something. These are the rules that you follow, and I would follow that. And one of the concepts that Ansel Adams had was this idea of pre-visualization, meaning that I can get to such a level that I can see the final print in my head, the way it's going to look as a print. I can look at the landscape and I can envision it as a final print. And I got to that point, so I would be going out and I would take my view camera and I put the dark cloth over my head and I could visualize and I could say that mountain's going to be in this zone and that part of the landscape is going to be a particular shade of gray. And it bored me after a while because it was like, okay, I can envision it in my head. Why bother going in the darkroom? Why bother completing the image? I've already seen the image in my head. The same thing happened with digital. With a digital camera, which I I love digital photography. I take the picture and I look and I say, oh, I've got it. Well, why bother continuing at that point? I already got it. There's no mystery for me. The thing that I love about pinhole photography is I'm not really sure what my composition is. I know where my landscape is going to be, and I also know roughly where the edges of the frame are going to be, but not exactly. And then when I go in the darkroom, I'm actually completing the composition because I can make areas lighter or darker and sort of control where your eye's going to move throughout the composition. It's not as though taking the picture completes the composition. I complete the composition when I'm in the darkroom. So that keeps it really interesting for me, where I take the picture and I'm like, I don't know what this is going to look like until I make a print. So a huge difference between digital and the kind of analog photography that I'm doing now. So on June 10th, I'll be back for a pinhole workshop where I'll teach you how to use a pinhole camera and how to do this kind of mark making if you're interested in a darkroom. We'll create a darkroom space here, and I'll provide cameras and paper, and you can make images of Bloomington in the same way that I make images of East Texas.